the trauma after losing her husband in a car accident that she feels she is responsible for. That's the big twist. So the woman in the yard mentioned during their conversation she had been summoned by the mother. The mother's confused on what it meant. And then we get to the last half of this film. So now we see the woman in the yard. She's standing up from her chair. Now she's using her powers, and her powers are shadow manipulation. And there's some cool shots with this, where she has like her arm as a shadow reaching up and she hits a wind chime for a scare. Or she's using her shadows in the house to pick up things and throw them around, which I think is the most cliche shit ever. I am so tired of that fucking horror movie trope where they just move around like moving fucking plates and shit. But at least using the shadow powers to do it was cool looking. It really reminded me of Courage the Cowardly Dog with that episode where like the shadows fight each other. I love that. I love Courage the Cowardly Dog, and I can always find ways of tying it into movies I watch because Courage just had so much good shit to it. So it did remind me of that. But the shadows were a cool idea, and there was some creativity there where they started closing blinds in order to take away shadows so she couldn't use it. Like, it was good ideas that really feel worthless in a movie like this, unfortunately. So anyway, after she starts demonstrating her powers and they start countering it by getting rid of the shadows, it then goes into like a totally separate movie after they end up after they've run away from the shadows and they're up in the attic, where it just becomes a fucking totally different movie. It gets so trippy and surreal. It has like time-altering elements where the mother, like, she starts going to like the past where her husband is there, and we get to like see that, and it's like a happily ever after thing, but it turns out it's like the mirror dimension, so everything's like flipped. Then she comes back to reality, but now she's the woman in the yard, so she's sitting in the chair. So now we're seeing the movie play out in front of her as the woman in the chair from her perspective. Like, these are cool ideas and they look cool, but it doesn't fit with the rest of the film that's just been established. It just comes out of nowhere. Like, it seems like what happened is they had the woman in the yard and they want it to be like this really formulaic, throwaway, dog shit horror film. And then the director's like, this sucks. I really want to try something. They're like, okay, as long as we just get some tickets, some asses, and seats, just put it to the end of the movie. Who cares? So he decided to get experimental, and I appreciate what he tried to do, but I just don't think it works for the movie. What ends up happening is the woman in the yard is there because the mother wants to end her own life. She's going through so much grief, and she feels like her kids are going to be so much better off without her. So the woman in the yard is there to help her do that. And that's when you get to the ending of the film where she has like a gun to her head, and the woman in the yard's like helping her pull the trigger to end her own life, and then she doesn't. She walks away, her kids come back, and it's happily ever after, but then it turns to one of the pictures, and her name, Ramona, is backwards. Thus, the implication is she did take her own life, and now she's in the mirror dimension of the happily ever after that's not real. It's a very bleak ending, and it takes a lot of fucking balls to do that. So ultimately, the message of the movie is she couldn't move on from her grief, thought her kids would be better off without her, so she shoots herself in the head. It's a pretty crazy message to send, really. And I can at least appreciate it tried to do something at the end here, but it takes the last 15 minutes and just crams so much shit all at once. Tons of different ideas, different imagery, all overloading you in like 10 minutes. It just doesn't mesh with the rest of the movie. So, overall, Woman in the Yard is not a good movie, but it's also not a terrible film either. I really think it's just